Welcome to lesson 2, one budget to rule them all. No, but in all seriousness, this lesson is about putting your budget on one sheet, so you know where all of your money is coming from, where it's all going, and where it should go. I learned this through trial and error. It took me a while to figure out the best method to creating a budget that was both realistic and aspirational, something I could stick to, and would help me get to the goals. You know, those goals that you created in the last lesson, get to your vision, get to your prioritized goals. Budgeting doesn't need to be hard. It can be easy. Follow this process. I call it bottom line budgeting. Follow this process so that you can get to your vision, you can fulfill your goals. In the last lesson, I told you about that fruit salad and how it was my tipping point, how I didn't see my friends, I didn't go to that potluck because I didn't have the money for a fruit salad. That's what got me into budgeting. Now, let me tell you how I figured out how to budget. The first month, it was a mess. It was an absolute disaster. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have that, hundreds of dollars that month to spend on whatever I want as long as I just stick to this budget. But I forgot some expenses that come up, like taking my car to get an oil change, excise tax, insurance, utilities. Cell phone bills, you name it, I've forgotten it. Birthdays. That shouldn't happen to you. Use my foolproof bottom line budgeting method so that this doesn't happen to you. I've learned to budget through trial and error. It took me a year, figured it out. I don't want it to take you that long, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. Bottom line budgeting has 3 steps: review, decide, and review. Let me tell you what that means. Step 1 is to review everything you spent last month and put it into categories. This is the hardest part. This is about facing reality, putting reality right in front of you and looking it in the eye and saying, I am going to conquer you. First, you need to figure out what you've done, how you spend your money. Where does it all go? This really is the hardest part, but it's also the easiest part because it's just about looking at what you've done. That's it. That's the entire thing. You look at what you've spent. A lot of times that means going into your bank or your credit cards, downloading all of the transactions and then putting them into categories. I have that downloadable budget sheet. Most of the time those categories fit you. So we'll go through the tactics in a second. But the first step is just review what you spent last month. The second step, decide what you want to spend in every category. When you face reality, when you look at what you've done, you now have a new perspective to decide what it is you want to do, what fits into your goals, how you're going to get to where you want to be from where you are. Now, a lot of people, when they start budgeting, they skip step number 1 of reviewing what they've done, what they did last month. You don't know your habits until you know your habits. You don't know your spending habits until you see them on paper. A lot of people will come to me and say, I don't spend that much. I only spend on my necessities and I don't think I need help, but I do need help because I don't know where my money is going. But you know what? I don't spend that much, so it's a grand mystery to me. Well, that mystery doesn't stay a mystery when you figure out where you're spending your money. A lot of people will say, I don't think I spend that much on food. And then they put it down on the budget sheet and they realize they're a single person, they're spending $1,200 a month on food. Maybe you're not that bad. Maybe you don't spend $1,200 a month on food. Figure it out. Look and see what you spent last month, and then you can look and see if it fulfills your goals, what you're doing, what you're wasting money on, what you're spending too much on, and in some cases, what you're spending too little on. So we go from step 1 to step 2, decide. You're looking at what you've spent, and then you decide how you want to change. Now, deciding is all about weighing your options and about figuring out what you want to sacrifice to get to your goals. If you have a strong vision, if you really want to get to where you want to go, Sacrifices are easy. If you really want to feel financial security, you want freedom, you want peace, you want to get to a place where you don't have debt, where you can afford life to be lived the way you want to live it, well, some sacrifices don't look so bad anymore. Decide where you're going to sacrifice. If you're married, decide together. If you're not married, then decide by yourself and write it down. Put it in the budget. Decide what you want to spend in every category. The third step is review. So review, decide, review. Now reviewing means that third step, the second review, the third step is to go through all your decisions and review. Figure out, does it make sense? Is it fulfilling my goals? Is this achievable? Are these habits I can change? If you go from spending $800 a month eating out to $0 a month eating out, is that achievable? No. In my experience, in my own life, in my clients' lives, very few people can do that. Very few. A lot of people need a carrot. A lot of people need a catch. They need a safety net. Something happens, you're tired. Delay, don't deny. They go in and they put in a little bit of a takeout or an eating out budget and they use it at the end of the month. Review. Review for an eye of, is this achievable? Review with an eye of, will this fulfill my goal? Review and make sure that you can do this and that it achieves your goal. Now, if your bottom line, so you at the very top, and we're going to go into tactics at a moment, at the very top you have your income. Second step is your expenses, right, in the budget sheet. And then at the bottom you have your bottom line. Review, is it positive or is it negative? Was it positive or was it negative last month in your first review? Is it positive or is it negative in what you decide when you decide what you want to spend that month? Is it positive or is it negative? What do you do with that bottom line? If it's positive, it goes towards your goals. So step number 1, save up that $2,000 starter emergency fund. Step number 2 is get out of debt using the debt snowball. Everything except for your mortgage. That bottom line goes to your debt snowball. Okay, we'll get into tactics. But I want you to understand the framework. It's review, decide, and review. Let's put it into action. Let's look at this. Let's look at the budget template. Bottom line budgeting. Great. So at the very top here, you'll see income, and there are 3 different spots for income. Most people use the first row here. The first row is income that is post-tax. It is your take-home income. You have taxes taken out. These are your normal jobs. Okay, you're full-time employed. Your company probably pays benefits, and you have withdrawals taken out for your taxes. So great. Put it in there. If that's the kind of job you have, full-time job, your taxes are taken out, that's the line you use. The one under that is like 1099 or contractor jobs where the company, either you're self-employed or the company you work for, issues you a 1099. They don't withhold taxes. This is an important distinction because taxes are a lot of money. You want to make sure that you are paying your taxes. You don't have a giant bill to the IRS. So if your income is pre-tax, put it on that second row in the income column. Now there's another row, and people use this in different ways, but this is if you're, this is for other kinds of income. So in this budget, a lot of times people use this if they're selling items out of their home, right? Like let's say I decide to sell this bookshelf, right? Well, I would probably, I'd put the proceeds in that line. So let's just, let's say I sell this for $100, right? I would put $100 on that line. Great. That is probably not going to get taxed, right? Which you should always tax send the government your taxes for income, but let's just say that there's a little bit of extra and some wiggle room in there. That's what that line is for. All right, so now you have your total. If you're married, add both yours and your spouse's income in here, so you have your entire view. Income is done. Now let's go down to expenses. You'll see here there are a bunch of different categories for expenses. There are needs and there are wants. You'll see that there's a fun money category and a housing category and a health category and a pet category and a children category. Go through, and each one of these expenses needs to be sum total. Now, some of these categories you probably won't use. Not everyone uses all of these categories. And you might need other categories as well. Go ahead and you can make this budget. It's your budget. Make it what you want. Add rows, add a column. I'll show you how to do that right here. Go ahead and add a column here, or not a column. Go ahead and add a row here. Let's say I wanted to break out my subscriptions. All right, I'll add them right here so that I can see every detail of what I'm doing. Amazon Prime is a little bit different than Hulu, so let's put that difference in here. Now, one thing I will caution you about, you don't want to put your takeout or restaurant budget into your grocery budget. Those are two very different expenses. I wrote a blog post about it. You can read about it, but they cost very different amounts. So separate those budgets out. You have your needs, and then you have your discretionary income or your discretionary expenses. Takeout, restaurants and whatnot, that's all discretionary. That's in the fun money category on purpose. All right. So now I've put in, I can see my totals in each category, each column. I can see how much I'm spending and how much I spent last month. And now I'm deciding how much I want to spend this month and going forward. Let me caution you. You need to do a budget every single month. Every month. And why is that? Well, birthdays are once a year. I'm not going to spend money in April for my husband's birthday in September. I'm not going to spend money in January for Easter. Birthdays, holidays, some things happen in some months and not others. Now you can save for it all year long. That's what sinking funds are for. Let me show you how a sinking fund works right now. Let's say I'm saving for a holiday. For me, it would be Christmas. Let's say we're saving $1,500 for Christmas. If you see, I now have a Christmas sinking fund. I've typed that in here. And we've decided to save for Christmas starting in January every year. So divided by 12 months in the year. And that gives me my total each month that I'm saving for Christmas. Great. By December every year, I have $1,500 to use for Christmas. I've put it aside in my budget. It's a Christmas sinking fund. In my accounts, it's going into my savings account. My savings account has all of my sinking funds in it. I keep track of them, and I'll show you in the next video how to track it all, how to put it all in mint.com and automate that tracking. So I know how much I have to spend. I know what it is that I'm doing, where all of my money is, how much I have saved for all different sinking funds and different places. So, all right, you've gone through, here's the budget sheet. You have your income, you have your expenses, and now you have your bottom line. Scroll on down to the bottom line. It's number 3. A lot of people, when they start this, they see that their bottom line is negative. I'm sorry that happens. That's where you're starting. That's where I started. Bottom line is negative. You need to get that into the positive. There are just a few ways to do that. Increase your income, decrease your expenses. Honestly, tackle them both. Go ahead and try to increase your income, get that second job like I did, and decrease your expenses. You can do it. I know you can. Let me also show you, because some of this hooks up, Let me show you the debt snowball. So integrated into this budget, if you look down at the bottom, there's another sheet called the debt snowball. Now your minimum monthly payments auto pull from this debt snowball. So go ahead and put your debts in, everything except for your mortgage, not your mortgage. Put in what the debt is, the total amount, the interest rate, and the minimum payment. That'll auto-populate into your simple budget, and it'll show you how much you have at, using your bottom line to pay your debt snowball. Now, let me caution you, you should not be using your debt snowball until you have $2,000 saved in your emergency fund and you have enough to pay your monthly bills. All right, there's no use in paying off your debt if you forget or can't pay rent. So make sure that you have enough for your monthly bills. I call that a cash flow fund. And you have your emergency fund just in case something happens to your puppy or your car or you. And then you start paying off your debts using the debt snowball. Now it'll auto-populate what your debt snowball is. It'll auto-populate how quickly you can pay it off if you use everything that's left in your bottom line. Go ahead and use that. I've shown you here now. I filled it in while we were talking, so hopefully you saw that. And now you can get started. Let me tell you how this worked with some of my clients, okay? So thinking back to the same client from last video. When they first came to me, they had a bottom line of negative $2,138. That was their bottom line when they reviewed last month's spend. We rearranged their life. They figured out what they wanted to sacrifice. And let me tell you, they were fed up. They were completely fed up. They really wanted that second child. They wanted another kid, but they couldn't afford daycare. They needed to get a bigger house. They were stuck in their 600-foot condo, and they didn't know how to afford anything. They had all of these competing priorities. Well, we figured out their goals. We wrote them down, the smart money goals. We figured out their priorities. We put a plan together, and they worked hard to follow it. I mean, really hard to follow it. We got their grocery budget down from, I think it was $2,100, plus restaurants and takeout, down to $800 a month total food spend. Now they're working to get it even lower. For our family of 4, we hover around $500 of total food spend. Family of 4, near Boston, Massachusetts, $500. You can do it too. Go ahead and get my Sabre Street meal plan. You can do it too. $500 a monthly food spend. Anyway, okay, commercial over. So they reviewed, were disgusted, and then they decided together, and I gave them some suggestions. They got their spend under control, and once they got it under control, then they focused on their income. Okay? They got their spend under control, so they were no longer in the red, and then they focused on increasing their income to increase their bottom line so that they could really get that debt snowball rolling. And it's a snowball rolling, get it? So within the first few months, they paid off a few, I was going to say a few thousand. I think it was closer to $26,000 of debt in 3 months because they got that debt snowball rolling. They were increasing their income, they were keeping their expenses under control, and they were tracking their budget. Now, next lesson is about tracking your budget and making it automated, making it easy. It's semi-automated, but making it easy. These are the secrets. These are the secrets that people who really can manage their money well and who grow wealth and are able to live well know about. How to put a budget all on one sheet and then track your budget so you know where you are, how much you have to spend in all different categories. Do I have a clothing budget this month? I mean, this should be a no-brainer, but a lot of people aren't taught it. Anyway, so they got through. They were disgusted, they decided, and then they stuck to it. It took a lot of work. It took a huge mindset shift. What are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to sell? What are we paying off when? How much progress can we make this month? And they got excited. And let me tell you another little tidbit here. When you first start, you're really excited. You're really excited about what you can do. And it reaches a peak. And then you start, and your excitement, think about this as in a graph. Your excitement dwindles as it gets harder and harder. And it's difficult to keep it going. That's what lesson 4 is how to motivate yourself. But you have to understand that it is going to be hard. You're looking at your expenses, you're disgusted with yourself, you're demotivated, you are maybe full of shame in your current situation and where you are, and it's demotivating. That's normal, that's natural, it's okay. I was there too. Once you start seeing some success, you start checking off some of those goals, your motivation starts going back up. That's what this debt snowball is for. That's why you do a snowball, not an avalanche. So you start really accomplishing your goals, and you get to a point where it's super hard, like really hard. You don't know how much more you can sacrifice. You don't know how much more you can do. But then you start seeing your accomplishments. You start seeing what you can do. And you really get there. You're starting to get somewhere. You're starting to make progress. And your motivation goes up from that rock bottom all the way, back up. And you've paid off Amazon. And you've paid off Venmo. And now you've paid off Chase, and you've paid off MasterCard, and you've paid off American Express, and you've paid off Navient, and you've paid off Sallie Mae. And look at you. All those monthly payments are starting to disappear, and your snowball is rolling, and you're accomplishing things. And before you know it, you've paid off $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $100,000. And where are you now? You're getting toward your vision. You're accomplishing your goals. You can see it. You can start to feel that you're going to get there. It's important that you know it's going to be hard. But it's also important to know those sacrifices are worth it. It's worth it. Your future is worth it. Your family is worth it. You are worth it. Almost everything worth doing is hard. So be prepared. It is hard. In video number 4, we'll get into motivation. How you can stay motivated through this journey, because it's hard. I want you to succeed. I want you to see and get to and love your vision and make that a reality. You'll get there. You can do it. I've seen a ton of people do it. I've done it myself. You can get there. I'll see you in the next video.